Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining us on episode 21 of Health Talk with Dr. Cal. I'm Nikki Sterner, and today we're going to be discussing COVID-19. This has been an obvious topic to discuss since we started this podcast, but we just weren't ready to go there. It felt personal. It felt uncertain. It felt like we didn't have all the information, or the information that we were receiving was changing each week. It was hard to know what was true and what was not. The numbers just didn't add up. What was certain is that we missed our extended families. We missed seeing our kids in school and sports. We missed our usual routines. We missed working out at the gym and going out to eat at restaurants. We missed the human connection, smiling face to face at each other. And as a result, we had very sad things happen, like suicide among teens and adults. Depression and anxiety increased. It was like the world was in a fog of fear and couldn't see through to the other side of it. Luckily, the world has started to open up. Kids are back in school and sports, restaurants are available for seating, companies are hiring employees, and people are getting back to work. There is hope again. Many families didn't get to say goodbye to their loved ones. We lost people too soon. It was a tough time for so many, and for this, we want to say how very sorry we are for your losses. This has been a long storm, and we are hoping for brighter days ahead. Shine on, friends, shine on. Welcome, everyone, to Health Talk with Dr. Cal. I'm Nikki Sterner, and today we are doing podcast 21, which is going to be about COVID-19. And before we get into that, I wanted to say welcome to Dr. Cal and Eric, who are here. Welcome, guys.
Hey.
Hi, Nikki.
And I wanted to go into our quote of the day. Develop an attitude of gratitude. Say thank you to everyone you meet for everything they do for you. This is an encouraging quote by Brian Tracy. So what are your thoughts on this, guys?
I love Brian Tracy.
Absolutely. And Nikki, thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for thanking me.
No, it's great. I think there's too little of that in our world today.
Yeah.
You know, people, especially, okay, I'm old, the younger generation, they need to say thank you more. They just kind of like expect everything and you do something for them and they walk away. You go, what happened?
Yeah.
That's
funny. That reminds me, like, I'm always on top of Jake and the kids. The girls are really good about it. He's really good about it, too. But for some reason, since he's the youngest, I'm always like, Jake, what do you say? Like, if we're at a restaurant or something, he's like, Mom, I already said thank you. Like, he's so annoyed by me by making sure that he says that. But I don't know. I feel like it's really important, too, to just, say thank you.
Well, let's lead in from that to an article that I want to bring up today.
Okay.
The title, and this is from sci-news.com. So sci-news.com. Western diets cause damage to immune cells in gut, study shows. The world can thank America for our Western diet. Unfortunately, that Western diet is spreading disease around the world. And all the immune or inflammatory diseases that we have in America are now beginning to exist and show up around the world because of the fast foods that are restaurants that are being open, all the fast foods, all the processed foods are adding to these inflammatory diets. And we've talked about this in the past, but more and more studies are showing that it's damaging the cells in the gut lining. The gut really starts in your mouth and goes all the way to the other end. And so you're getting damage to those cells, and it is damaging their health. So one more reason, and it damages your immune system. So we're talking about COVID today. Again, makes you more susceptible to not only catching COVID, but also suffering from its effects.
Yeah. I mean, I think about, like, at home, we eat pretty cleanly. I have like a soup with chicken and vegetables every day. But when I go out, I crave like a cheeseburger and French fries and stuff like that. And it's so bad for you, I know, but it's like, I don't crave vegetables and good stuff when I go out. I feel like it's a treat for some reason. But I guess if you're eating out a lot, you have to clean it up to, like, more healthy.
Oh, yeah. Well, good example. Last night we had family in, and I've been on, lost 12 pounds in the last 6 weeks. And all I did was cut out the junk. Haven't been eating out. Haven't been going to restaurants.
The podcast's making you feel guilty? Is that
yes. Not guilty, but thankful.
Thankful. There we go.
And I've really lost my craving for sugar. But last night we went out and got some takeout, which I love. Thai food. Pad Thai is one of my favorite foods. But it's noodles, and it's got lots of sugar in it, and lots of carbs and fat. And I started eating. I'm like, I don't eat as much as I used to. And I started eating, and I ate this whole big thing. And afterwards, I felt like terrible. Oh. And so it was just another sign, proof that this is bad.
That's so true. It's like you think you're going to feel so good, like it's such a reward to eat this junk food, whatever it is. And then you just kind of go, why did I do that afterward? When you're eating healthy.
Well, people will call it nutritious too because it's got chicken and it's got bean sprouts and other vegetables and things mixed in, but it's just a lot of noodles, a lot of pasta, and
the sauce is the sauce
and the
full
sauce
of
and the sauce is full of salt.
Yeah.
corn syrup.
In fact, I got on the scale this morning. I was 2 pounds heavier than I was yesterday, and it's because of all the water retention that came from all the salt and the sugar that were in the food.
That's the problem with traveling. When you travel places, you always want to try the cuisine and everything that they have there. And then after like a week of being gone, you're just like, I feel so sick.
Yeah.
And you get home and all you want to eat is like salad. And healthy food. Yeah.
Yes.
To, like cleanse yourself out.
Yeah,
Yes.
so true. Yes. All right. Well, that was a great article. Thanks, Dr. Cal.
You're welcome. Go see the article. We'll have it as a link. And, they can go check it out off the website. It's a good article to read.
So
Yeah.
check the show
For anybody.
notes for our website. There you go.
There you go.
Okay,
Thanks,
perfect.
Eric.
All right. So before we get started on today's podcast about COVID-19, I just want to say to everyone who has lost family and friends to COVID-19 that we are really sorry for your loss. And I know this has been, a struggle for many, many families who didn't get to say goodbye to their loved ones while they were in the hospital and passed away and didn't get proper funerals and burials. And so we do not take this lightly when we're talking about COVID-19 today. Just know that we are with you and we understand that this is a complex issue.
Yeah, even with everything in life, you've got job loss, you've got deaths, you've got births that grandparents weren't able to experience, all sorts of crazy stuff from this. Yeah.
Yeah, just a separation of family.
And I really want to talk about the numbers here to begin with.
Okay.
And I know we're about health and wellness, but the numbers and the effects it's been on the world have been significant on our health, aside from COVID-19. But I want to talk about have the numbers justified the shutdown that has occurred worldwide? And to go into that, we need to look at the numbers. First of all, the population of the Earth currently is estimated at 7,800,000,000. Okay? China, number one populated country, 1.4 billion. India, 1.3 billion. And these are rough numbers. You'll find different numbers from different sites online, and they do vary some. The third most populated country is the United States at a whopping 330 million. So we're way below the rest of them, but they need to dwindle from there. So we're in the top three, but long ways to go from the others. And our population is shrinking. If you've read the news recently, our numbers are going down. However, China is encouraging more population growth. They've gone from allowing, it used to be one child, then it went to two, I guess like 5-6 years ago, and now it's going to 3.
Oh, wow.
Because they're concerned that they don't have enough people there for the workforce.
Yeah, can't keep up, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
so
my
they're
gosh.
increasing their numbers.
Wow.
Want to go into now what's really going on with the world as far as death. If I think about life, and everybody does, because we're here and our lives are temporary. I tell my kids, think of life as a visit to the earth. I think I've said before, I see the world as this was, God created his version of Disneyland and sent us down here to decide whether we're going to enjoy it or be miserable. And but we don't get to stay. It's just a visit. Nobody gets to stay. We constantly live our lives as if we think we're going to be here forever, and we're shocked when someone passes, but it's part of what happens.
Right.
And I from my personal perspective, is so knowing that we're going to die, what should we really do to be happy? We need to try to keep ourselves healthy, both emotionally, physically, exercise, do all these things so that we can enjoy the visit and not be miserable. What good is it to spend our time here? I feel so bad. I have to say there's been times in my life where I've had periods where I've been very depressed and considered suicide. The thoughts have crossed my mind. I think they crossed the mind of almost everybody that's been here or ever lived at one point or another when things got really emotionally bad for them.
True.
But I remember sitting there thinking one day going, why should I leave? The visit isn't that long anyway. I might as well deal with it and figure out a better way to cope. And I did. And here we are today. The world is full of circumstances that shock us. And COVID-19 has been one of those, so that if you've had someone die and you've had that loss, or your life has been so disrupted because of the shutdowns, it leads people to think, I just don't want to deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because everybody I've ever talked to that's ever thought that way or has attempted suicide, and I've known many, they were thankful afterwards that it didn't happen,
Really?
because they came out of it. And we've talked about that before. You just got to change your perspective. You got to look for other opportunities and different ways to cope with life, and you will if you look. They're there. They're everywhere.
Yeah, it's almost like a moment where they just either go this way or that way. And if they can just hold on, you're right, they come out of it.
And the suicide hotlines are all about that. Make the call, talk to somebody. You don't have to say who you are, and they can help change your perspective.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling that way, do that.
Yeah.
Find a friend, find a coach, find somebody who will get you off that track. Now I want to move into, let's look at the world in general, since we're talking about deaths. In the world, estimates, found different ones online again, roughly somewhere between 150,000 and 175,000 people die every day on the planet. Out of the 7.8 billion, you got at least 150,000 that just leave the planet. If you go and look at COVID numbers, it's estimated that in the last 17 months, 3,700,000 have died from COVID-19. Okay. Now, we hear lots of information in the news about those numbers are skewed. They're counting people who have died that died from something else, and they're just calling it COVID. So we don't know how accurate the numbers are, but we're just going to go with what they say and go forward. So if you look at that, that's a 7% increase in the death rate over that period. Actually, I calculated over 12 months, not 17 months, so it's probably smaller than 7%. Maybe it's really 5 or 6%.
So just to give you an idea, too, I did the math. That turns out, and obviously there's not an average here because there was a bell curve in the COVID deaths, but on average, it's basically 7,200 people died per day.
Okay.
Okay.
For COVID. Yeah. And the number for the United States, roughly 8,000 people die every day in the United States. That's 8 to 10,000.
But that COVID number was worldwide, too.
Yes, that was worldwide. Okay, good. Okay, so now we're going to talk about, we shut down in the United States. Many countries in the world shut down. Communist countries like China, Russia, they did their own shutdowns. I mean, it sounds like China went totally, don't come out of the house kind of thing.
Wow. More
intense than anybody else. There were 2 countries in the world that didn't shut down at all. And we're going to compare our numbers with theirs and see if it really made a difference to the shutdown. Because the shutdown made life crazy for us, right?
Yeah.
Affected everything. Our economy's still anticipation of future economic disaster is, in the news. Different things people talk about. Who knows what will really happen, right? But we've had to change a lot of things. So those 2 countries, Belarus, which is a dictatorship, by the way, and Sweden, which is a socialistic country. But those 2 countries, if you look at the numbers, and those are smaller countries, obviously. Belarus has a population of 9.5 million. Sweden has a population of 10.2 million, so roughly the same size. Now, they had no shutdown. They continued life as usual. Everybody went to work. I guess there were minor things. They recommended that people social distance. But other than that, they did not shut down their economies. Restaurants didn't close. They still had big events.
Really?
The ones that everybody claimed would be spreaders of the virus, and everything would go down. Let's talk for a second before I go into those numbers. Really, what's happened worldwide? Statistically, it shows that if you look at the world, 10% of the population of the world, you have a 10% chance of catching COVID. Okay, worldwide. 1.5% chance of dying from COVID. Is that something that people should scream and run and be afraid of? I don't think so, especially when we see the increases in the numbers. But we did. We ran and screamed and hid in the closet, and everybody just has gone nuts over it all.
And we bought up our toilet paper.
And we were out of toilet paper for a long time. Numbers out of Belarus. Basically, their numbers were less than 0.5%. Okay, now let's take into consideration. A lot of people have claimed that the numbers are skewed, that in the United States we went on the high side of the numbers. 600,000 have died in the U.S. of COVID.
Oh, in the U.S. Okay.
In the U.S. Okay. If you look at the numbers, that comes out to, let's see, 1.8%. 1.8% of the population is said to have died of COVID. You take Belarus, that had 9.5 million population, they say 400,000 got sick. 33 million are supposedly caught COVID and got sick. Well, there's still confusion about positive tests, negative tests, and false positives, false negatives. So again, we don't even know if the 33 million is a correct number. In Belarus, their dictatorship might lean towards the other side, where they're not totally giving all their numbers. That's an assumption, of course, but could be, because the numbers are significantly different. Belarus only shows roughly 400,000 people got sick or have gotten sick so far. Only 0.3% have died. Okay, United States saying 1.8%. Belarus saying 0.3%.
0.03.
Yeah, not 3%, but
0.03.
Yeah, so much lower.
Why? Are we getting into that?
What?
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
The pro numbers people would say they skewed their numbers and didn't give us all the information. The others would say is that it just didn't spread through their community like it did, and they didn't social distance. They may have recommended social distance, but they didn't shut anything down. So people were living life as usual.
Did they wear masks?
I'm unaware of that, but I believe they did. I think the mask thing has just, has been there because even though Fauci at the beginning said masks aren't going to do a thing, I think generally the world put on the masks.
Yeah.
So then you go to Sweden, and Sweden, 9% of their population was showed to have become ill, whereas the United States, 10%, 1.5% deaths. I guess from my opinion, Sweden was probably trying to correctly count their numbers. Maybe they weren't exaggerating, okay? Or if you take the three together, maybe that number's closer to 1% or 1.25% rather than the 1.8 we have in the United States. The whole point of me bringing this up is that the lockdown appears to have made zero difference when you look at these other countries. Health-wise. Health-wise.
Yeah.
The world has trashed its economies because of COVID-19 unnecessarily, with a 1.5% death rate worldwide, or 1.8, wherever you want to go, somewhere in that, less than 2%. It seems a little ridiculous for them to try to control the whole world with a disease this way. In our opinion, it was ridiculous. And the fear created in and of itself, and we talked about this previously, reduces the ability to fight off bugs. And so your immune system is lowered when you're in a state of anxiety and fear. So basically in the United States and other countries that created lockdowns, they increased, in my opinion, the spread of COVID. Even though we had the lockdowns, people were in fear. So if they were exposed, they would have been more likely to have come injured or ill from COVID and died.
Yeah.
Think of the isolation they did in all the rest homes and the hospitals and not letting family come see them. That alone led to their deaths because they were in a state of, it increased their depression, which decreased their immune system and I think caused their deaths.
Right.
So
I was just going to say, a lot of these numbers, too, are hard to verify, right? They had a lot of false COVID death numbers because maybe it looked like they might have had COVID, or maybe they did have COVID, but they did die from some other reason, too. It's hard to prove exactly that COVID was the cause of that death.
Well, I think I'll bring in now, too, recently on May 5th, whether you hate Fox News or like them, whether you're conservative or liberal, Tucker Carlson on May 5th brought up numbers of people that had died from the vaccine. And the vaccine people say zero have died. Tucker Carlson said there's people claiming that at least, he mentioned on May 5th, at least 3,300 had died and felt that the numbers were higher. The pro-vaccine people say, well, those deaths, nobody died immediately after getting the vaccination. Okay, we can say that. Nobody died immediately after getting the shot. Within 30 seconds after getting shot, you're right, nobody died. Within a day, possibly very few died, if any. But days and within a month following the vaccine, those are the numbers that Tucker Carlson was giving, that we'd seen these people died. Well, then you've got the vaccine people saying, well, you can't say it had anything to do with the vaccine because several days or weeks had passed. It could have been almost anything that killed them, or maybe they were already sick and so that they had a compromised immune system when they got the shot, made it more compromised, and then they died. So they're trying to use the logic that it wasn't due to the vaccine, the logic that it had nothing to do with the vaccine because it was later. Well, you go back to the numbers with COVID, they use that logic against us on the other side. So they flip-flop. So on the one hand, they're saying they died from COVID even though they had some other disease or problem.
Oh, okay.
And so then they could call it a COVID death.
Okay.
But in this instance, you can't call it a vaccine death because, they already had some of the problems.
Different rules.
Yeah, so they flip-flop. And that's frustrating to me when you see our government and these pharmaceutical companies do these things because, once again, in my opinion, all goes back to the money.
So the 3,300, I've seen that number too. That's from the CDC website, correct? The VAERS website? The vaccine adverse event?
Oh, yes. And that's
yeah.
from Tucker Carlson. But they were claiming that website isn't CDC info. It's reported. People reporting the deaths.
People reporting the deaths, right.
And so they're saying, well, anybody could go on there and say, oh, they died of the vaccine because there's no one monitoring it or fact-checking. So
I think it's a lot of work to actually report something like that on the website.
Yeah, and I've heard things already. Right after the vaccination started, there was some medical doctor who died, can't remember what state it was. I think
it Florida?
Could have been Florida, Texas, somewhere out there where they would actually talk about it, where the conservatives are that would bring it up. And that really seems, okay, everybody, yes, I am a conservative. Okay, probably asking that question. Oh, he must be conservative. Yes, I am. And that's why I'm conservative about health, and you guys have any questions about that? The numbers? Well, let's talk for a second about viruses and immunity.
In general?
Yeah, in general. And there's been articles out there talking about viruses and what they do to the body, how they've affected us over the years in history, and what's the reality. A lot of people are out there getting shots even though they've had COVID. And you know what? If COVID truly is a genetically altered virus, and it did come from a lab in Wuhan, China, and Fauci had something to do with it, if those things are true, I could say in this case, my opinion, that we don't know how the reaction to that virus really could be. Because it's been attenuated or changed from its natural source. If that's the case, then the body's response to it could be different than all the other viruses that came from nature. And if that's the case, then I could see people saying, well, maybe I should still get the shot after having the virus or being positive for COVID.
You're saying because it keeps changing?
Yes, because if it was an altered virus, then the immune system could be responding differently than it would to a regular virus from nature.
Typical. Okay.
However, having said that, if you look at all the viruses that have come from nature, every one of them throughout history, those that have not died from it have built an immunity to it, and therefore they don't get it again. The relapse rate is extremely low, very few, and they're saying there's relapse rates to COVID. Again, another discussion when you think about it. What's a false positive? What's a false negative? They go take a test. Those that claim they had, they went in, they were sick, they got a test, it said they were positive, then they got better, and then weeks later, months later, they got sick again. So they went and took another test, and they were positive for COVID again. Well, it's very possible the first time they took the test, they never had COVID, and it was really negative when it said positive. My own son got COVID, living in Utah. He and his roommate were exposed to someone with COVID, same day, same time. A few days later, he started getting symptoms. His roommate started getting symptoms. Identical symptoms. They both went in for tests. My son tested positive. His roommate tested negative. He took 3 different tests. Every test said he was negative.
Oh, wow.
But they had the exact same thing and were exposed to the exact same people.
Wow.
You figure that out.
That's crazy.
It doesn't take a lot of intelligence to tell that there's something wrong with the testing.
Huh.
So it's very possible that those having relapses never had COVID the first time. Or that the antibodies that built up are flashing positive on a test again, even though what they're having the second time really isn't COVID. So the testing, we've never perfected the testing with COVID, even though they want us to believe they have.
Yeah.
So there's another issue. Let's take chickenpox for an example. That's one of the viruses. There are viruses out there that stay in our body. Our body builds an immunity, but the virus just kind of hangs out there. Doesn't, the symptoms go away, but it still hangs out in our body. If you've had chickenpox, very, very few people ever die from chickenpox. Very small numbers, and chickenpox is still rampant throughout the world. Still exists here in the United States. Heck, they used to have chickenpox parties. Kids, back when I was a little kid, the parents would go, hey, okay, go over and everybody hang out together, get your kids chickenpox and get it over with. And now they're giving vaccines for chickenpox. Tell me that's not about the money. However, the virus stays in your body, and if your immune system becomes compromised, and this happened to me many years ago, I had chickenpox as a kid, and then when I was an adult in my 20s, went through a very emotional time, a lot of stress at work and other family issues and stuff. And I got shingles, and shingles is from the same virus that causes chickenpox, because that virus stays in your body, and if your immune system gets severely lowered, it can come out in your system and can cause it follows the nerve tracts and usually produces sores or welts on your skin. Little spots of inflammation look like blisters, and in my case, it was very painful. I remember having severe headaches, which wasn't a common symptom. But I went through it, lasted, a couple of weeks and was gone. And so COVID, they're saying now that it probably continues to hang out in the body and may remanifest. Is that they haven't totally proven that. And even the numbers that show you getting it again are extremely small. Extremely small. I don't know statistically what those numbers are. Didn't have a chance to look that up. But I mean, if 2% of the population are getting COVID or dying from COVID, 10% are getting it, I'm sure probably less than 1% of those that have actually had it would ever produce or have yet to produce a relapse in their symptoms. And we have cold viruses. My understanding, there's over 100 different cold viruses, and probably a whole lot more than that. Same thing with the flu viruses. There's tons of them out there, and they're constantly spreading around our society. So they're making us sick, giving us almost identical symptoms to COVID.
Oh, yeah, that's true, huh? And you think you get a new one every year, right?
Yeah. There's roughly, the estimates are strange because the numbers are often skewed, but roughly 600,000 people a year die from the flu worldwide.
I was going to ask you that earlier.
Yeah, okay, so what's that? 20% or about 80% less than we're calling the COVID numbers. No, COVID numbers we gave at 3.7 million for 17 months. So if you scale that down to a year, let's say we're down closer to 3 million, 31 million. So maybe a fifth die from the flu as opposed to COVID, what COVID has caused. But everybody's getting the vaccine around the world. If the vaccine really works, we're going to talk a little bit more as we go along here about the vaccine. Any other questions you guys have about what we've already talked about?
I mean, there's lots of viruses that remain in the body. There's like hepatitis B, hepatitis C, all the hepatitis, right? All
Right.
those measles, Epstein-Barr virus.
Things that hang out, and some people do relapse
and like
with the
Epstein-Barr
hepatitis viruses.
Yeah, hepatitis, Epstein-Barr can come back like anytime your hormones are changing a lot, like whether it's after a pregnancy or after a puberty or,
Yeah, and they rarely kill people.
Yeah.
But can be very miserable to have the relapse, but viruses can hang out in the body. Yep.
So it's not anything new.
No, it's not anything new, and we're not seeing any reported deaths from the relapses from COVID. So at least not that I've heard. Oh, one thing we're going to mention here, are you guys familiar with the term shedding?
Shedding, yes.
Like snakeskin, yeah.
Kind of like, shedding a snakeskin, except this case, there's stories, things in the news about those that get the vaccine that after they've had the vaccine for a time, they shed that vaccine
in the air, basically.
In the air, and other people claiming they are having minor COVID symptoms because they've been around who haven't been vaccinated because they've been exposed to people that have had the vaccine.
So just to clear that up, you're saying someone gets vaccine, their body sheds the virus, and somebody near them
the
can
simulated virus that's in the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine, because it's not the real virus. Your body takes it in, the body reacts to it as if it is, so you build an immunity to it, and then they're claiming it disappears. I'm still confused about what do you mean it disappears? Where did it go? It didn't just disappear. It just disappeared and is no longer in you. So, okay, great. Anyway, there's people saying that haven't been vaccinated that all of a sudden they're getting symptoms. In fact, Nikki, didn't you say you thought something odd happened to you after being exposed to Eric?
I didn't. No, it wasn't. I mean, I've been exposed to tons of people that have been vaccinated, and I don't have a problem with that. But I was reading post from somebody who's an immunologist and deals with, the immune system and how it reacts to things. And there was like 500 comments on this post about people who had been exposed to people who had been vaccinated, and they were all experiencing similar symptoms to what I had just recently had. So it was like shocking for me, like, oh my gosh, wow, I didn't even realize this was going on. But I remember coming in to see Dr. Ingrid and telling her, like, my left eye has been twitching like nonstop for 1 week. And then the next week I came in and it was like, now my right eye is twitching. And then I had these weird symptoms this is like TMI for guys, but a lot of women are affected by it. As far as like women who have gone through menopause may start bleeding again. I don't know if that's if they have the vaccine or if they're exposed to people who have had it, but
getting a period again.
Yeah, like I finished my period and then I had like bleeding off and on for like 7 to 10 days after that, which I never have. So that was really another symptom that showed up in the comments from many, many people. So to read all like 500 comments, I was like, oh my gosh, there might be something to that. I don't know, but I had the same symptoms.
That makes me think, I read an article where I shouldn't be verbally abusive to others, but a moron said that we should start humiliating those that haven't been vaccinated. Well, after this information, maybe we need to start humiliating those that have. No, just kidding. Don't do that on either side. That's ridiculous. People should be able to have the choice. You want the vaccine, get the vaccine. You don't want the vaccine, don't get the vaccine.
Right.
The numbers don't say to me that I need to get the vaccine, so I'm not getting the vaccine. I think my chances of dying are so small, I'm not going to be worried about it. And if I do get sick by it, I've been through colds and flus before. It's fine. I'll deal with it. And I constantly am trying to keep my immune system at optimum, so I'm not concerned. Now, Here, I want to 1 second now. Eric's had the vaccine, and I want him to talk about why he had the vaccine. And I think he has a valid reason for getting it. And this is another frustrating thing to me. His reasoning shouldn't exist, but it does, and he'll talk about it.
You outed me. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
So it's interesting just bringing up all these points to kind of give some back history to this. So before COVID shut down the world back in February, I guess that was 19. I've lost track of time now. We're in this war period. Okay, 20. So Valentine's weekend of 20, we went up to go visit some in-laws in Washington, and that trip on the way up there, my daughter was sick. Like on the plane when we left, we're like, we'll just get through it. We're going to be here for like a week. Let's get up there. We'll nurse her back to health when we're there. We're not canceling our plane tickets because we had non-refundable tickets.
Oh.
We go up there. There was like 18 family members who all got together for like this mini reunion. We were there for like 4 or 5 days. My wife and I both got sick. One of my other daughters did. So I have 3 daughters. One didn't get sick. Out of all the other 18 people, all of them got the same symptoms we did. Like everything they describe in COVID, we had it. It was terrible. Like we're all dying. They're all blaming us for bringing this cold to them. And I was like, all right, that's fine. I'll take the blame.
Yeah.
I never got tested for having COVID, but everybody who described what getting COVID was like was everything that we lived through. And I'm like, maybe we had it. I don't know. It seems like we did.
Yeah.
So we're like, I'm not going to tell anybody because I don't want to be like, oh my gosh, we had COVID and everyone freaking out around us. I didn't really ever bring it up to anybody because I was kind of shamed into keeping it in the closet.
Yeah.
So I did. And, we had some neighbors who got COVID from getting together with family and things like that. Like I've known plenty of people who've gotten the virus. I don't know anybody personally in my life who's died from it, but I know a lot of people who've had bad reactions from it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, fast forward, the vaccine came out. My wife and I talked a lot about it. We're like, you know what? To Blaine's point, we love to travel. Like going to Europe, seeing the world is like on all my bucket lists, and I don't want that to be a prohibitor. Just going out to the stores, like I know it hasn't happened yet, but I know someday Costco's going to have the sign, like, have you been vaccinated? You can come in. And I don't want to have to live a life where I have to stay at home every day because of that. So we chose to get vaccinated, both my wife and I. We did it the same day. We did the Moderna vaccine, and it was an interesting experience going there and seeing everybody. It was kind of like this depressing place. Like all the people there weren't excited to get it, but they knew they had to. It was like we were being shuttled through this cattle prod kind of thing. But anyway, I was kind of concerned with the reaction that I'd have because I'm allergic to penicillin and I'm allergic to bees, and they asked me all these questions and they made me stay around for like an hour to see if I was going to have any adverse reaction to it. And I was fine. I got through it. But yeah, anyway, I guess the point is I didn't want to have this sheltered life where I couldn't travel and go experience things, and I figured let's just get it over with and be done with it, and we survived. I will tell you, the first vaccine, I was fine. Like, it felt like somebody just...
First shot.
First shot. I got punched in the arm super hard, and it killed, but I was fine. Like, health-wise, I was back to it the next day, working out, just fine. 19 days later, I think we got the second one, and it took me down. And everybody said that. Like, the first one's not bad on Moderna. The second one is worse, and it was. So we did it within 3 hours. I started getting a migraine. My wife went to piano lessons with our daughters. She wasn't feeling great. Again, like super bad punch in the arm type of thing. By that night, like we were both on the couch, like it was 7:30, and we're both just like, we gotta go to bed, we're done. I slept through the night okay, but the next day, like I felt like the flu, like where your body aches and you're just miserable and you have headaches and nothing can cure it at all. And I had that for like 72 hours, and it just stuck around, and my kids are just on like autopilot, like taking care of themselves. My wife and I are like, we can't deal with you, just figure it out. We'll be in the bed. Like, we're dying.
And how old are your kids?
So one's turning 10 this week, and then 6 and 3. So luckily the 10-year-old stepped up and kind of managed the household for a bit and fed them all cereal, and we stayed alive. So, but yeah, we got through it, and it was rough. And to your point now, so it's been, I think we got our second shot 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it's been some time. I don't notice any health effects in my body now that I've had it. Like it passed through. I feel like crap for a few days. Like I bounce back. I'm good. My wife is starting to notice other things that are coming up. She's having some more gut pain in her body. She's feeling like weird kind of tightness here and there, and just kind of some stuff that hasn't been normal. And it's all been from like day one of that first shot. And so she's like, maybe there are some things that are just kind of underlying things that you don't realize. And is it attributed to that, or is there something else going on in my body? And you'll never know, obviously.
When you say tightness, do you mean like breathing wise?
No,
in your chest,
or nothing chest wise. More just like muscle tightness. Like when she wakes up in the morning, she just doesn't feel great. Yeah, her body
achy, kind of stiffy, achy.
Kind of like that flu-like symptom stuff, but not as bad as like the first 3 days. and her gut in the morning is just like, "Bleh, get it out of me," kind of a thing. And
You mean like diarrhea?
yeah, and just like nothing sits well in her. But then after she gets up and works out and gets like food in her body, she's good to go again. And around 8 o'clock, like she just starts like the day's over. I gotta call it quits.
8 p.m.
Well,
Yeah. 8 p.m.
Luckily not 8 a.m.
So you'd say you felt like you needed to get it because you want to travel, you like to do all the things that you're afraid
Yeah.
are all of a sudden they're going to say you can't do these things unless you've had a shot.
Yeah.
What about
And it's going to happen.
Yeah.
There's no doubt it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's already happening.
Yeah, we went out the other day at a restaurant, and it's like, if you've been fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear your mask. And I'm like, there it is. It's already starting.
what about kids?
Yeah, so that's what's funny too. So when we got it, the first time you had to be an adult, 18 or older to get it. And the second shot we got, they said anybody, I think it was 16 or older, could get it. And there's a couple 16-year-olds there. And it was funny because I took a selfie with my daughter, and then you get the little "I've been vaccinated" shot. And I text my mom, I'm like, I'm getting round 2. And my mom's like, "You didn't give it to your daughter, did you?" And I'm like, no, of course not. We didn't give it to her yet, the 10-year-old. She's like, "Okay, good." I'm like worried about that. But now I just heard a commercial yesterday on the radio that everybody is welcome to get it.
Yeah, and the irony about that is they've had 0 deaths, at least my understanding, 0 deaths with anybody under 20
Yeah.
Oh, you mean from getting COVID?
from actually getting COVID.
Yeah, 0 deaths.
And so
you're saying
give them
why
the vaccine?
vaccinate?
I've talked about it before. Pharmaceutical companies, people in government, it's all about money. This is not about the disease. This is about making money. And so now I'm with Eric on that, and I don't do a lot of traveling, though I'd like to do more. And if it comes down to that, I'll probably get the vaccination if it's required. However, I've done some studying and looking into the viruses and the vaccinations, and I'm not going to get the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine. It's showing, the evidence is showing, and we've got different experts talking about it. One guy specifically, of course, they're calling him a crazy nut, because anybody who's contrary to anything the government or the pharmaceutical companies or the CDC or the World Health Organization says has to be a nut, because they know better. But Gert Vanden, I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong.
Vanden.
You're going to have to spell this for show notes.
Yeah, GEERT VANDEN BOSSHE PhD, virologist.
Oh, Vanden Bosch or something like that. Yeah,
you can pronounce that better
I think
than
I've seen
me,
that name.
Anyway, he's out there speaking against those 2 vaccines. He's saying that one of the big things wrong with it is it makes your system, it really boosts your system against the current virus and shows to be very effective against the initial COVID virus. However, variants, they're really unsure about. Even the pharmaceutical companies aren't sure if it's really going to work against the variants. He's saying that's where you're seeing the spread of the variants in those areas where they initially tested the vaccines. He's also saying that the research shows that it can compromise your immune system, or at least his research, compromise your immune system later against other diseases and other viruses and bacteria, that is making you hyperactive against that one, COVID, but you might find in the future that you have a decreased immunity against other things. It's not an attenuated virus. If you look at the viruses that have been, not attenuated vaccine. If you look at the vaccines that have been made through history, what they've done most of the time is they've taken the existing virus, altered it to a milder form, then injected it into your body, so your body reacts to that altered form, and then so if you're exposed to the real virus, your body immediately is able to fight it off without producing any symptoms in your body, because it's basically been pre-prepared to handle it if it comes. Whereas the Moderna and Pfizer vaccine, it's not an altered form of the existing vaccine. Basically, it's virus. It's basically a fake one. They made a fake one to mimic the virus. And apparently this ability to do that has existed for, I read different things, last 20, 30, even 40 years ago. They started coming up with this research and figuring out how to use it. Now actually it's in the news that this virus or this vaccine is so successful, they're thinking of using it for all kinds of other diseases. And so that could be a scary thing. And if you've had it, and this one guy, if he's right, I mean, he claims there's going to be, and I can see maybe why some people think he sounds crazy. But if you go, let's see, here's the website, urgentactionnowcom/genocide. So he's thinking within 2 years you're going to see people dying like flies all over the planet. At least that's the gist I get from watching it. He's very yes, from the vaccine.
Yeah.
Good luck, Eric.
Not dying.
Fun, guys.
No more traveling for you.
Not dying from the vaccine, but dying
from
because their immune system has been so screwed up from the vaccine that now other
they can't fight off other
right, they're
invaders.
not able to fight off other invaders, or the variants of the vaccine.
Oh, right.
And if you go to this website and watch the guy on there, he talks you through the whole thing and why this expert is thinking that way. Okay, everybody's calling him a goofball and a fool, and he's wrong, and we all hope he is. We don't want to see people dying like flies around the world a couple of years from now. And so I hope he's
We'd
wrong.
like to keep you, Eric.
However,
The podcast will go on.
We're nothing without you.
Being a natural healthcare provider, rarely ever been very few times except for injuries that I've ever gone to a medical doctor or gone to the hospital for anything. I don't take medications. I can't remember the last time I took an aspirin or a Tylenol. Mm-hmm. I just try to keep myself healthy. And you don't need those things if you keep yourself healthy. But there's a purpose for all this. I think it serves a purpose. All this exists in our society and is a benefit to people. And if you're not going to keep yourself healthy, if you just want to eat like crap and go do whatever you want, you're going to need the medical doctor because he's the only one that's going to keep you alive. And even though he's keeping you alive, it doesn't mean your quality of life is necessarily going to be any better.
Yeah.
So I always recommend just keep yourself healthy. Keep yourself healthy. Eat right. Get your exercise. Keep your emotional state well. And you'll live a long life and a much happier life. Having said that, if I did get a shot at this point, I know Johnson & Johnson took some flack in the beginning when they first started releasing it, that some people were having adverse reactions to it. I remember them halting him in Seattle or someplace in Washington, but then they started up again. That one is an attenuated virus. So if I were going to get any vaccine at this point, although there are other companies coming out with new ones, there were several different pharmaceutical companies who were working on vaccines. Pfizer and Moderna had that technology. In fact, from what I understood, one of the divisions, I can't remember now, I think it was Moderna, had already been using that technology previously and trying to create different uses for it to combat even things like cancer. So it was already research that was there. They were able to apply it to the vaccine quickly, and that's why it came out so fast. The other freaky thing is this is at least the first time I'm aware of in history, maybe it's happened before, where the CDC, World Health Organization, just gave a green light. Okay, we've done mild testing of all this. The research has been around for years. Go ahead and give it to everybody. You do all realize if you're having those two vaccines, you're a guinea pig. Sorry, Eric. But the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is an attenuated virus. At least that's my understanding. So it's like the previous forms of vaccines that they're giving to people. And by the way, not an anti-vaccine person. I personally don't think, not sure about the current vaccine, but previous vaccines have been given. I was watching, I watch different medical shows. It's fine. I like to watch them. I think it's fascinating to see the surgeons. And I like the Good Doctor.
Oh, okay.
But he's autistic. The one head guy on there, they show him as being having high functioning autism, and they've said more than once on an episode, vaccines don't cause autism. Well, guess what? I agree. Vaccines don't cause autism. It's not the vaccine. It's what else that's in the vaccine is what's causing the autism. That's causing the nerve damage that's causing the symptoms of autism. Not the vaccine itself, but the preservatives they're using to put in the vaccines and other substrates in the vaccines that they're linking to things like autism. So, and from what I understand, they're trying to make improvements on those, trying to take out the mercury and other things that exist in some of the vaccines. That's whole another podcast to talk about vaccines specifically and what damage they can do to their system. And again, the vaccine itself, I'm not afraid of. I'm just afraid of all the other crap they put in it.
Oh, sure. To make it work.
Together with it. Yep.
Yeah.
To preserve it until they can get it to the people.
The preservatives.
And give it to you, So, and they got to be able to do that. So they just need to come up with better ways. And it again, it goes back to the money. They're always trying to do it the cheapest ways. Why do we build all these nuclear power plants around the world before we were really ready for them? Because they were in a rush to get it done. And whenever you're in a rush, I mean, how many times have you done something and we're in a hurry to do it, and so you're rushed into it and ended up creating more problems because you're in a rush.
Goes back to the beginning of this conversation. Fast food, right? If you're in a rush to eat, you're going to eat crappy.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
The Western diet is all about getting it done quick because our lives are so busy. I think
it's really a mindset, though, because, I know when COVID happened and restaurants shut down or were closed, I know I just started cooking at home, and it really doesn't take longer. It's just a mindset of like having to do something, you know? Like if you're working full time, it does feel like a lot to come home and then prepare a meal, and you spend, an hour in the kitchen and then cleaning up, but you feel so much better.
Once you get in the routine.
It's a routine.
And
yeah,
then
you're
you
right.
and then you notice how much you feel better and your health improves, you recognize that it's worth it.
Right.
And it really doesn't take that much longer. I mean, okay,
doesn't.
maybe it adds a half an hour to your time. So just do it, people. Just do it. Other thing I want to talk about is a group called Frontline Doctors. It's aflds.org. That's the website. These guys are doctors that some of them were fired from hospitals because when COVID began, they were given hydroxychloroquine to patients and were having success with it, just like President Trump was claiming. And of course, the pharmaceutical companies and the World Health Organization, CDC, everybody in government otherwise clamped down and said, oh, no, it doesn't do anything for you. Because why? They want people to buy that vaccine. They want to sell vaccine. This is why. It's about the money. And these guys, Frontline Doctors, this group, and I believe it's out of Texas, these doctors, several of them were fired because they were told they couldn't give it. By the way, let's talk for a second about hydroxychloroquine. It is a malarial drug. Been used for many, many years and very successfully against malaria and other conditions. In third world countries, I've been told that drug was like an over-the-counter aspirin. They could go in and get it. Guess what? In a lot of those countries, they pulled it from the shelves.
Oh.
At least that's what I've been told. And so they've tried to shut it down. Well, guess what? Frontline doctors went, okay, thumbed their nose at the hospitals, the pharmaceutical companies, and said, you know what? We know this works. We know this can help people. So if you go to their website, you'll see they have a long list of a recipe. Hydroxychloroquine is one of those things in the recipe. You can contact them if you have COVID, and they will write you a prescription over the phone. And then you can go fill that prescription. They'll fill it, and I believe, I haven't done this. I don't know specifically anyone has done this. I've been told this, that they can air it to next day air to it if you got symptoms and see if it helps you if you actually do get COVID. But they're convinced that they're helping people and people are getting better and they don't need the vaccines. And so they exist. They're there. They haven't been shut down yet. I'm surprised the government hasn't shut them down, but I'm glad they haven't. So if you want to find out more information, go check out Frontline Doctors.
What's their website again?
aflds.org. And so there you go. You guys have any questions about that?
So those were doctors that got fired for...
Yeah, several of them say, because they are like, hey, this is working. Why aren't we using this? And because we're being told we can't.
Oh, so they were kind of hushed.
Yeah, and they were doing it under the table. And they're like, hey, we told you can't do this. And they lost their hospital privileges and were fired from their jobs.
The control is out of control.
Oh, yeah.
The conspiracy theories.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking it's not just a theory anymore. They, big money controls our system, and big business and the corporations. But that's, we're not a political podcast.
Not yet.
So we won't go deep into that. See, we're coming to the end here, I think, of today's show. And what we try to do on every show is, okay, if you're not going to go mainstream and what the government and the pharmaceutical companies are telling you to do, what do you do? Mm-hmm. Well, that's why we threw out Frontline Doctors there, and also gave you the information on Greet Vanden Boss, or however you pronounce his name, so that you become more educated, knowing that there's other things out there. My recommendations are keep your immune system strong. Stop eating the fast food. Start eating organic fruits and vegetables and meats. Eat less red meat and pork and chicken, and spend more time eating fish. And that's what I do. There are natural remedies to boost your immune system. Everything from the ionic silver that we've talked about in the past there's all kinds of stories in that. We're going to do another show on silver in the future, but it is antimicrobial, antiviral, antifungal. Anytime I get to feeling ill, I put a few squirts in my mouth and have had earaches go away, sore throats go away, eye infections go away quickly.
You know what's cool about that? I have a mouthwash now that I got it.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more popular.
Yeah, and it just kind of clears it out.
I've had many times people said I've got a tooth infection and put a couple spoonfuls of silver in their mouth, rinsed it out, done that 3-4 times a day for a couple of days, it's gone.
So not a spoonful of sugar, a spoonful of silver helps the medicine goes down.
Ionic silver, and again, it's 0.001% or 10 parts per million is is what's shown to be the most effective. You don't need it any higher than that. Anyway, another day about silver. So my recommendations, get your, if you're afraid and you don't want to do any of the natural things that we talk about, yes, go get the vaccine. Go vaccine. Or if you're worried about traveling and you want to be able to participate in the world, the numbers are small. Eric got sick. He went through it. That's the majority of people. If they've had 4,000 or 5,000 people die from the vaccine and they do it worldwide, it's a very small percentage, and it does appear those are the ones that are already immune compromised. Last thing you want to, I still don't understand the thinking. If my system is not healthy, throwing something at it that's going to make me less healthy, even temporarily, is a dumb thing to do. I'm already not being able to fight off the problem I have right now. How am I going to be able to fight off a reaction at the same time? The inflammatory process is taking place in my body already. The white blood cells are fighting things off as fast as they can, and now you just overloaded it with a vaccine. That doesn't make sense to me either, unless what they're giving you is going to boost your system. And the vaccine does maybe boost it against the virus, but it also goes through an inflammatory process. Your white blood cells are having to differentiate and change in reaction to what's in that vaccine. So it's already doing that with something else, and now you've just doubled down on it and overloaded it with the vaccination. I would say to somebody, get yourself as healthy as possible before you take it. But again, if the death rate is, if there are really people dying from the vaccine, it's a very small percentage. So if you're a healthy person and you go get it, you're probably going to be fine. Unless you got some underlying condition that you don't know about, and then that could be a concern.
So immune boosting, you're just saying like fruits and vegetables, fish, a little bit of chicken's fine.
Yeah, and supplement your diet, especially if you're not eating well, you need to take supplements, and good supplements. Most of the supplements out there are synthetic. Make sure you're not taking synthetic supplements. Why? Because God or the universe or whoever you want to, whoever you believe in or whatever, whether by accident or by divine creation, all the plants out there that they create all these synthetic supplements from, it's not from the plants, or they copy from, I should say. So let's say, vitamin A, whatever it might be, in a synthetic form, they've looked at what was in the plant or the fruit or the vegetable or whatever, and they're like, okay, we figured out it's this substance in there that is the vitamin A. Okay, so we're going to go create that in a lab. Well, the problem is that fruit or vegetable, meat, whatever, there's a combination of other things, and it all works together for a full benefit of your body. You've just eliminated all that when you're just taking the one single thing and made synthetically in a lab. It's missing all the other good stuff. Mm-hmm. So make sure your supplements come from food, come from the natural environment, and were grown organically, and chemicals and weren't used on it, or it wasn't genetically altered, because more and more research is showing all that stuff is damaging your immune system as well.
Just like junk food, there's junk vitamins.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good way to put it.
What else do we need to cover for COVID, guys?
I hope that let's put fear in people's minds again. I
that
hope
always works.
I hope the variants don't sweep through and shut us all down again. But the variants seem to be moving, smaller pockets, and they'll exist in other countries. They haven't really hit the U.S. But if they come back again, I'm sure once again the idiots out there are just going to shut us all down. So let's take an example from the dictator in Belarus and the Swedish government that have, in my mind, proven that there's no need for a shutdown.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for all of that information, Dr. Cal. And Eric, thanks for sharing your story with us today.
Yeah, hopefully I'm here next week.
Yeah, we're going to pray for you, Eric.
We're going to monitor Eric for the next,
24 months.
I'm sure we hope to do this podcast for many years in the future. If Eric is no longer on the show in a couple of years,
You know what happened.
yeah.
You have the whole story.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. I wanted to talk next week. We're going to talk about sugar and inflammation in the body. Right,
Yeah,
Dr.
sugar
Cal?
on the inside and the outside of the body.
So you're saying like putting sugar on your skin versus taking it in your mouth.
Yeah, straight sugar, sucrose.
Sucrose. I love sugar. You're saying I shouldn't love it. You're saying that's a bad
Rub
thing.
it on your body.
Carbohydrates.
I'd prefer to put it in my mouth.
Carbohydrates in the right quantities are good for your body. Your body needs carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are complex sugars. Okay, your body breaks it down and from fruits and vegetables and turns it into glucose, which is the form the body wants to function. Sucrose is in such a small form, it actually has to change it again to turn it into glucose.
So welcome to episode 22. Is that
Yeah. Are we
right.
starting?
That's a teaser for next week, guys.
Yes.
It's easy to get me going.
Yeah.
Eric,
Oh,
so.
yeah, definitely. So thanks for listening, everybody. We are dropping the podcast on Tuesdays, so please check for us on next Tuesday. Anything else? Find us where you listen to podcasts. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please do share it with someone and follow us. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for listening.
While we make every effort to broadcast correct information, we are still learning. We will double check all facts, but realize that medicine is a constantly changing science and art. One doctor may have a different way of doing things from another. We are simply presenting our views on how to live a healthy lifestyle that will be as evidence-based as possible. We welcome any comments, suggestions, or corrections of errors. We take no money from drug or device companies. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others, including but not limited to patients that you are treating. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the podcast. Under no circumstances shall Dr. Kel Fullerton or any guests or any contributors to the podcast or any employees, associates, or affiliates of Dr. Kel Fullerton be responsible for damages arising from use of this podcast. This blog should not be used in any legal capacity whatsoever, including but not limited to establishing standard of care in a legal sense or as a basis of expert witness testimony. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. Our website, blog, and podcasts are all HIPAA compliant. While you may give your email address to subscribe to the website posts or to post information on the website blog, we will never share your email address or contact information with any third parties without your explicit permission. The contents of Health Talk with Dr. Kel podcast and the show notes are all copyrighted. All blog posts, podcasts, and show notes that are distributed to the public for free can be redistributed via hard copy or electronic copy for free only if Health Talk with Dr. Kel is included as the acknowledged author within the actual media that is being redistributed. The Health Talk with Dr. Kel podcast is a production of the Orange Stack, with executive producers Dr. Kel Fullerton and Eric Hammond and hosts Nikki Sterling.